introduced our speaker of the day today. Thank you.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Hello. Oh,
Yeah.
yes, sir. The harder you work when you achieve it. With this inspirational thought of the day, Ani Lakshi Devi welcome you all to the fifth day of our one-week online workshop cum seminar jointly organized by Smart Village Lab Local Chapter, Unnat Bharat Abhiyan Unit, Vineshwar Brahma Engineering College and University of Melbourne. Good morning to one and all present here. Respected Dr. Hemanta Doloi sir, respected Mr. Samir Barua sir, teachers and students from different colleges, seniors, juniors, and all my dear friends. Today, I feel very fortunate to introduce the one because of whom Smart Village Lab is also open in Vineshwar Brahma Engineering College. Our mentor, our guide, respected Dr. Hemanta Doloi sir. He is presently the Associate Professor in Construction Management at University of Melbourne, Australia, and also the Founding Director of Smart Village Lab. He is also the founding chairman of the International Conference on Smart Villages and Rural Development. He had completed his Bachelor of Engineering from Civil Engineering Department and Masters of Engineering from Asian Institute of Technology. He had completed his Doctor of Philosophy from University of Sydney in specialization with project management. He completed his graduate certificates in university teaching in educational leadership and administration general from University of Melbourne. He was the Senior Civil Engineering at Joint Venture BBCT at Bangkok Metropolitan Area, Thailand. He was also the postdoctoral fellow at University of Sydney. He also served as the lecturer and senior lecturer at University of Melbourne. Recognizing outstanding contribution in the research and teaching in 2012, Dr. Hemanta Doloi sir was awarded the Infinite Value Award Australian Institute of Quantity Surveyors. Currently, through the SVL, Dr. Doloi sir is contributing towards developing range of public policies for supporting data-driven, context-specific development and empowering rural communities globally. Thank you so much, sir, for giving your valuable time and for guiding us. Now, I would like to request Dr. Doloi sir, to please further continue the session. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Nilakshi, and thank you, Padmini, and also thank you to Dr. Ranghan, who is unfortunately not able to join us today because of his audit happening. And also thank you to all the participants, including Samir Barua sir. As you mentioned, Nilakshi, that I am the founder of one of the international conferences. Before I start, I like to share the screen so that you can all see what it means. So as you can see here, this URL is the Smart Villages Lab at Melbourne School of Design, .Melbourne School of Design msd.unimelb.edu.au. Unimelb stands for University of Melbourne, EDU, education, and AU is Australia. So this is the website that we have founded with our work to be publicly available. And as I said, this did not happen overnight. University of Melbourne giving me this URL, this space to host my work, it has taken quite a lot of effort and convincing kind of argument that one has to accept. University of Melbourne being one of the top universities in Australia. This is the #1 in Australia. We have got 37 universities, and out of 37, University of Melbourne is the leader. Then University of Melbourne is one of the world's leaders as well, about 28, 29 ranking every year. So you see, and none of the Indian institutions are in that rank. So as you can understand, the stake of these universities to be in that particular position. So when I have been very fortunate, of course, coming from Assam, born and brought up in Jorhat, had my education up to year 12 in Assamese, and then engineering from Jorhat Engineering College. That is where I started my learning my English. And then that is how basically I ended up all the way, and today I am a proud academic of this particular institution. So this did not happen by chance. It happened through lots of dedications, lots of hard working, lots of perseverance and resilience, and many times knocking off kind of arguments as well. So, and today, that's what I'm very proud to my fellow people back in Assam, that this is what I am standing for. So the Smart Villages Lab was established here out of a project that I was successfully negotiating from the government of Assam for the University of Melbourne. And as you can see, the Assam project, growing capacity in rural construction and development, that was my original idea. And I'm very grateful that I was able to convince the government of Assam for supporting that sort of collaboration with their fund in the first place in 2015, and we have had the contract signed in 2016, but that did not happen again overnight. I have had about 65-minute meetings with the bureaucrats and the ministers and the politicians in Assam, and every minute was a lesson for me. It really doesn't happen that quickly, but I was able to convince them. So about 65 different meetings in Assam, which has resulted me in that particular fund. They have signed saying that, look, yes, we are happy and we'll give you this fund, provided you are happy to do what you have promised to do. Then with that commitment, I had to come back to the University of Melbourne and then convincing these people here, saying that, look, I have got a collaboration coming up from the state of Assam, and would you like to please let me work with them? They said, no, why Assam? We don't know about Assam. We don't know about that particular state. There could be many different states from many different parts of the world, and we do not collaborate with those people. We are a different institution, and if we ever work with in Assam, rather we work with India. You bring the Indian government, you bring the IITs, we are happy to talk to that sort of collaboration, but not with Assam. But I then had to go an extra mile. Again, it took me about 3 months to convince the University of Melbourne, saying that, look, IITs are there, Indian government is there, but this is something that I cannot do. I cannot go to the central government and negotiate a fund with this collaboration, because I will be a peanut in the middle. I'll be like a very small fly. So I cannot really do these things, and I do not have energy. Rather, I will do something with Assam, which I know, and Assam government, I have already convinced them, and please give me an opportunity to work with Assam. And finally, I was able to convince the University of Melbourne as well. With that kind of collaboration discussion over about a year, finally I got that project, and with that project, with my hard work, today I am here. As you can see, and I always encourage all of my people anywhere in India and also outside that please visit our website, and you get most of the information here. What we have done so far. Not all the time the information is up to date, but we try our best to really bring the information up to date here. Now you can see here the very first landing page here is about the COSBAR 2020. This is the International Conference on Smart Villages and Rural Development. So I have also established this conference as part of the collaborative project in 2018. So our project was first signed in 2016. 2016 and 17, I worked very hard to work out, give a shape to this particular project and the direction. And based on that, then I thought project will come and go, project will start, project will finish as far as my academic collaboration project is concerned. But I must leave a legacy for us to continue further. With that legacy, of course, this website is there, but along with that, one very important live entities that we are creating every year is this international conference. So first time it has happened in Guwahati in 2018. Second time also it happened in Guwahati, and third time also it was supposed to be happening in Guwahati, but because of our current COVID situation, we are conducting it digitally. And I'm very proud to say that this conference has actually grown over time. We have had now acknowledgement from various parts of the world. And this year, we have received 15 international papers that will be presented in this conference on a digital manner. And I would like every one of you to please be in touch with me and to come and listen to those papers that is happening over 7th and 8th of December. And I have not had the program yet, but I'll be communicating a program with all the people, including on our website. And you can see basically how the papers are being presented and who are the keynote speakers and things like that. So we have got 15 papers to go through. We have got about 6 or 7 keynotes to go through. And we have also 3 posters. So along with this conference, what I have said, what I have actually promoted, that people need to not only write the scientific papers, but also they can bring their scientific ideas into the smart villages design competition. So smart villages design competition, as you can see, is one of the other aspects that we incorporated in this conference, that is called the poster competition, design competition. So we have received 3 posters this year. We have selected them to be presented as well. And these posters are coming from different part of India. One is, I think, from Uttarakhand. Another one is from, I think, IIT Delhi. And one is from Assam itself. Assam Engineering College, some of the students who have been working with me, they had also submitted a poster that will be presented. And then I am taking Assam Engineering College as our local organizer for this conference. And this conference is happening, as I said, on a yearly basis, and we like to grow. And over the time, we actually have a lot more other ideas as well. So please keep an eye, and we will definitely be welcoming you guys to listen to these papers during that time. And so you can then give us the feedback. And next time around, you might also be able to contribute as well, because that is the plan. And then you can see here, I have got some names here who are the keynote speakers. We are connecting with the UN Habitat India country manager from New Delhi, so he promised to speak. And then we have got director IIT Tirupati. He's a good friend of mine, Professor Satyanarayan. He's coming along for speaking. I've got Kosi Varghese from IIT Madras. I've got Professor Mark Burry from Australia. I've got KC Iyer from IIT Delhi, and I've got Professor Vijay Kumar, the director Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, IIT Delhi as well. So Professor Vijay also has spoken in this forum through the Vinasa Brahma as well. All right. So this is the plan. Then I'm going to now talk about my aspiration and interest in the smart villages and where it has started and what we are planning today, and how the smart villages workshop is coming along. So let me just put up some slides here. Am I audible? Everything is
Yes, sir.
okay. Good. All right, so my screen is now visible. All good?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and is my screen moving?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. All right. So as I said, in 2016, when I started this particular project with a collaboration of the University of Melbourne, working for Assam. So as an Assamese, as a person from that region, I always have my heart and soul in that part, and that is the reason why I wanted to work in that collaborative project and working especially for the people of Assam. And when you talk about the people of Assam, out of about 35 million people, about 86% people lives in rural. And as you know, most of us have come from the rural background. So in Assam, if somebody wants to really work and with an aim to develop the human behavior, human life, that has to come from the rural. It is not the urban. So that is the reason why I started that idea of smart villages, and did quite a lot of R&D work to start with. As you have heard from very many different talks over a few days, that in order to work on any intervention, in order to improve on anybody's life, so your key is the data. You must understand the context. You must understand where you are working. If you just bring simply the top-down interventions, as our governments are always doing it, central government actually comes up with the various schemes and state government takes it on, pass it on to the people and try to improve the people through those schemes. Efficiency is not very high because sometimes the context is not quite aligned. So data-based evidence from the local people with the grassroots level context is what you can actually work on a very efficient manner. So having said that, what I did then, I went all the way to Majuli because I'm from Jorhat originally. I thought Majuli is a very accessible place for me. Every time I go to Assam, Jorhat, I can always go over to Majuli by crossing that ferry through Nimati Ghat. And so I have done maybe 20, 25, 30 trips over the last 3 years to Majuli. And I thought I will start something from there. So we have identified 37 villages in Majuli, and we wanted to collect some data from those people. So, and then staying in Australia and having a full-time job at the University of Melbourne, my stake is very high. My responsibilities are very high. And then I cannot really go to Majuli and collect the data by myself. It is very, very hard. So what then I did, I have taken the, the benefit of the ICT, information communication technology, and then I have gone out and then trained some people over there in Majuli, some local heroes. I would call them hero, 4 or 5 boys and a couple of girls. They came and I have hired the venue in Majuli College, Rangasahi College. I went to the principal. I got those people came over, including the college community, and I started teaching them how to collect the data. And then I have actually given them some iPads. I bought about 4 or 5 iPads, I remember. And we then developed with the IIT, with the help of IIT Guwahati as one of my other partners, an app. And that app was actually loaded in that iPad. And then I had given the iPads as the gift to those young people and told them, look, please take this iPad and collect the data day in, day out. And you have to pump out all the data to me. I will be receiving in Australia. So that was happening and that was possible. So these 6 people, they have been rat running across 37 villages, across 2,500 households, and they have collected lots of data for me. And this data we were able to retrieve from Australia on our end using the cloud transfer, and that was much easier. So about 6 or 7 months time, we have been able to get quite a lot of data. Every household was giving about 20-25 pages long information, and then that is 2,500 households. Imagine the amount of data that we gathered over that period of time. And with that data, then we are able to, again, develop some algorithm and then to find out basically what those villages are about, who lives in those villages, what are the immediate needs, what are the requirements, what do they have, what do they do not have, and how these people can be empowered with the minimal but direct intervention programs so that we can actually align the government policies and schemes for their actual need. So then that was kind of a proof of concept. We have developed that thing over the project life. And then I have also spoken to the government of Assam, Rural Development Department, Panchayat Commission, and people like that. But look, government is government. They are not very interested. They just come and go. I meet the big officers, have a cup of tea, and then I go from here and tell them what I'm doing, and they take sometimes interest, they don't take sometimes any interest. But then one very important incident that happened to me, and I was very interested to actually, with a great interest, I took a very, personal kind of time to meet with the commissioner, PNRD at that time, so Panchayat and Rural Development. So I said, look, sir, if you give me a time and if you bring your people along, I want to show you what I have developed, how I have been able to collect the data from Majuli without even going there using the ICT, and how this system is working for me at this moment to find out exactly what this community is about. So this is a very good proof of concept that we developed through this project. Would you be able to please give me some time so that I can demonstrate? So they had given me a time. So I came, I remember the time was about 1 o'clock in one day. And I was in Jorhat on that day. So 5 o'clock, I woke up and come all the way to their office. Office is, I forgot where is the office of the PNRD. But anyway, so I went to the commission, and then we had a meeting. There were lots of people, 30, 35 people came along. And then I have presented everything. I have shown the efficiency of the system and how easily we can collect the data, how easily we can actually understand the community and then work on the interventions. I doubt that they understood any of those things. Then later on, when I met the commissioner, and I was in his office, and he was so proud to show me a big pile of data being collected by the panchayats for some part of Assam. And he said, look, I have got this material sitting on my table. It's a huge pile. It's a mountain of data, lots of papers. And I said, oh, sir, you have been collecting this data like that. But what I have shown you is exactly the same, but in a much efficient manner, because everything is in computer today. He said, oh, no, we don't work like that, but I have to go through this file, and I'll extract the right sort of information. Accordingly, I'll design my strategies. I said, this is a very inefficient system, sir. But look, very hard to change the current status quo of that kind of practices. So that means what I'm trying to say is that no matter what I have done, there will be always a skepticism. There will be always not many, people coming forward and appreciating and taking these things harder. It is very hard. So that means that people like us, in the intellectual space and research space, whatever we do, the contemporary work, state of art work, it doesn't really infiltrate very easily for building the capacity within the public system, because public system is very difficult to change and people are afraid of changing. Then anyway, so as part of that particular project with the contractual deliverables, I have done everything today, and I don't want to go too much into details about what the project was about, but roughly, just briefly, if I say, there were 3 components. One component was building capacity in construction management as an education. So we have identified Assam Engineering College, and we have developed a construction management program as one of the new and emerging disciplines for the state of Assam to be improving the construction across the board. And that is the new kind of discipline that requires among our professionals. At the moment, construction management is not considered to be an established profession in Assam. Civil engineers and other engineering professions, they do most of the construction. All the PWD engineers are all civil engineers in a way. So they do not have the right sort of skill for developing the construction the way it needs to be developed. So that is the reason why I brought the international experience and exposure, and bringing that sort of state-of-art program for the Assam Engineering College to be rolling out as construction management as one of their flagship programs. I have delivered the material, but they have not kicked off yet. I will see when that can happen, but I doubt. But anyway, that's one part. Second part is, doing the, some of the original research, empirical research. That is where I started Majuli, and I have done the work and research. And based on that, I developed some modalities of rural development, kind of concepts. So then that is where the smart villages concepts come up. So I wrote lots of, knowledge and evidence from around the world. As an academic, what I need to do, I have been doing that. And I wrote a couple of books and also some policy framework as well. And if you go to our website, you can see the publications list there. Policies are also being published there. So some of the policies I have to give to the government. So one of my other requirements was that do the research, and research-based policies should be given to the government of Assam for implementation, and I have done that. So government of Assam has got everything today. But now, again, government of Assam is government of Assam. Why they would consider about a book or a policy documentation that has come from me with some evidence? They do not need to do that. So they will just do whatever they need to do day in, day out. But these are the things that will sit on somebody's shelf. Even one of the very senior officers saying that, look, Hemanta, this book has got no meaning to us. But anyway, so they do not believe in the books and the knowledge. They believe in what people say is important for them. So this is how the government works. What can we do? Anyway, so then that project is almost coming to an end. We had some other things as well. I don't want to go too much details. But as I said, because we have done the work in Majuli, we have written up the knowledge and the modalities. Now I thought that if we do not take this.
Hello, sir. Sir, your mic is mute, sir.
Hello.
Hello, Professor Doloi.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay. How long the mic was mute for?
So just for
Sir, five
Okay,
seconds.
5 seconds. So now it is okay again?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I don't know where it has come from. So now, the Smart Villages workshops is born out of that kind of frustration. That my research work, my Mazuli's work, my books and policies, nothing work. Nothing has infiltrated to the people in the public space. They first of all, they do not have interest. Secondly, they do not have the capacity to be able to absorb it. And Assam Engineering College, as you can see, one of the premier institutions, even though I have given the construction management program as one of the flagship programs for them to develop, one or two persons, even they are interested, they can't do it. They are not interested to do it because people are lazy. They don't want to take any opportunities to create these things, out of their, square. Why they would take some extra, pain? They're working for the government. They're getting salaries. They are doing what they are meant to be doing. Why they have to do some extra work? So that is where public servants are not quite interested in. So because it's quite different from education in other countries, including Australia. Australian education, there are lots of things to talk about. Our education system here, I work for the University of Melbourne by almost, but at the same time, my salaries are not always for granted that government has to pay me irrespective of what I do. I have to rather make my own money. I mean, bring the money to the university by good teaching, good research, good engagement, and university has to have the some sort of standing so they get the indirect benefit and they have got funding coming through, and this funding can help us getting the salaries. So that means our education system here is the funding wise, it is like a semi-government. So government pays 20%, university generates 80% on their own. So that is the reason why we got to be on our toes. We got to do the new things. We got to really help university growing in their reputation as well. But in India, in Assam, or even in other institutions in India, that sort of pressure is not there because it is once you get a job, it is for life. So you know that you will be getting salaries. Salary will be keeping up, going up all the time according to the revisions and CPI index, and finally you get a massive amount of pension until until you die. So that kind of guaranteed benefits are there in our system back in India. So that is the reason why people become very lazy. And so as now with the current government's initiatives, people are becoming more lazier because everything is free. The socialist country, socialist government, everything is free. So ministers take pride if they can announce some free schemes. But this is where they are killing the entire social capital of the place. It is very different from what we do here and what is happening in Indian context. But anyway, so Smart Villages Workshop, I have written up a long document with my idea that what can be done in Assam, how we can engage the people. And I was actually talking to Mr. Dr. Ronghan to see whether he will be interested to facilitate this particular workshop along with us. And he was very proactive man, and he said, look, sir, go for it. I'm very much with you, and I like this idea. So our intention was actually for me to go over there and sit in that place for 7 days, be with Binesa Brahmo Engineering College, and get those people together in a physical space. My intention was that I will simply, ask Mr. Ronghan, Dr. Ronghan, to recruit those people, all the attendees. Now today you are here. I would have got everybody there in a physical space, and I could have challenged the people, identifying a particular village and then improve it from there. So we could have worked with some scientific principles according to our recommendations and findings, and then start taking a village, and then with the help of the the participants, we could have developed some master plan with very specific to the village to be able to improve from the current state to the new state. That was the whole idea. But because of the pandemic, we could not do that, and that is where this webinar started. But this webinar is as good as perhaps it could get, because of it is actually generating the awareness, and it is also giving the opportunities for the others to join in as well. So now all the participants, this is my humble request to you, that you are now understanding my motives, my interest, and where we are coming from, what we wanted to do. And because you have been getting the opportunity here in the webinar format, that you are joining wherever you are, but over the time, I would like you to really come out of your comfort zone and make your hands and get dirty. Come along, be with us and then start working. If we can do in one village or two villages as a model, we can do multiple villages. And wherever you guys are coming from, you can actually take that challenge on your own. I'll be always there. From now, I'm just 50 years old, and I think another 30 good years I'll be with you. And I would like to really transform and show some visible outputs in the state of Assam, that without the public system, we can do something. And now, creating a new political party, bringing a new manifestation to the Assam, saving Mati Beti and things like that. These kind of slogans are not going to build Assam. No, Assam needs the people who has to go out and with the common people start building Assam. That is how the Assam will be built. Not a single officer or politician I have ever seen talks about delivering the projects. They do not understand how to deliver the project, how to build Assam. Buildability is not there. They are all thinking about Mati Beti to save by shouting slogans. It's not going to work. So smart villages, as I said, is very much important, because our living conditions of the poor are, rural people are very poor. The basic facilities are lacking, and basic opportunities for generating income is lacking. So one of the very important things that we got to understand, we cannot build for others. We cannot bring the publicly available or money or borrowed capital just to build for somebody the facilities they wanted to have. We have to somehow bring the ownership to these people. They have to own the facilities. They have to own their development. And for that, they need to have their own income source. So income generation is very important. And if we do not provide the opportunities for generating incomes for those rural people, no matter what we give for free, it will be all ruined over time. You are giving all the time, free motorcycles and free scooties and things like that for the people who are coming out first division in matriculation, for example. And this will spoil straight away. In higher secondary, they are going to fail. And if in higher secondary, if you give them a car, they're going to fail in engineering. If you give them a helicopter, they're going to fail in their life. They would not. They have to make that thing happening. So it is very interesting. And I don't like to talk too much about who I am and where I'm coming from, but I can tell you that many of you will be similar to me. When I came out of India for the first time, I had 6,000 rupees in my pocket, which is $150. That is the money that my dad had given to me in 1993. And that money I went to Panbajar State Bank to convert it to the US dollar, because I got a scholarship from Asian Institute of Technology in Bangkok. It's full scholarship, including my return ticket paid. I have to go and do my master's. That is how I came out of India. But then I need to have some pocket money in case rainy days comes. And my daddy thought that at that time, 6,000 rupees I'm giving it to you, which is 2 months of my salary. It's a far too much money that in any rainy days comes, you will be surviving with this money, 6,000 rupees. That was when I went to State Bank of Panbajar, State Bank of India, Panbajar, and I remember they gave me $10 note of 15 of them, 150 US dollars, and every single the number on that note was written in the ledger, as if like I'm stealing it. This money, wherever I spend, they will have a tracking where that money is going. So they have to write every single number of that dollar note. And that is how basically that I got that money. And that money still it is with me today. I haven't spent last 25 years, that money still with me. I didn't spend it. So, but that is the emotion that I have. I'm attached with the place, because I know 6,000 rupees at the time with my from my dad was a big money. And but today, by grace of God, I have got too much material around me, and that material, that's why I call it material, is not required all the time. So it's all about basically, and I made everything by myself in my 2 hands. So it is all about basically, if you get everything free, if that time my daddy was a super rich man, and I would not have been like this what I am today. So, and that is story goes everywhere. So it is very important that we have these people realizing the benefits coming from somewhere, and then being the ownership of that benefits. And that is where the income generation is very important. So if we can get these people along, if we can somehow develop our villagers and the village communities, we will be successful, not only for stemming the flow of migration to the overclogged cities, but also preserving the cultures and things like that. Our villages have got beautiful cultures. Our villages have got beautiful ecosystems. but today we are actually ruining it by having the top-down interventions. Like for example, Housing for All, the Indian government flagship program. What that is doing, that is actually throwing some bricks and mortars to every single part of the rural places in India. And people are just grabbing those opportunity bricks and mortars and building their beautiful vernacular houses, replacing that one with the 3-inch brick wall, not even plastered, not even painted. I have got the evidence of that. I can show you hundreds of those houses being built in Majuli, in Chualkushi, and other places. Is not livable, not livable. So that means our flagship programs, top-down programs, are killing our ecosystem in the villages. That is not something that we can be proud of. So it is very important that the bottom-up approach not only, as I said, empower the people, but also preserves the heritage, the history, and values, and so on and so forth. So now about the smart village workshop, as I said, it is always important that we take a village, a particular context, and then we basically build from there with the local people. So when I talk about smart villages as a concept, as you can see that these are the elements. This is not about housing, it's not about the infrastructure, but this is the education, health, access to the services, security, civic sense, and job income and everything. So this is where the holistic development model can come through, and that is what we need. So our focus areas are this, all of them. As you all realize that we cannot live in a place without income, we cannot live in a place without having the access to the education and skills. We could not live in a house where there is no energy, no agriculture, no shelter, and no health and well-being provisions, for example. So everything is equally important. So these workshops, I am thinking that who should attend? Everybody. Senior level students from the coordinating institution, academic staff members, representation of the village community, office bearers of the local villagers, local government, officials from the local banks, professionals from other professions, representation of the municipality, bankers, for example, teachers, and from the common local schools. Everybody has to be part of it because this is their village. I'm talking about the village being our context. Within that village, there will be teachers, there will be engineers, there will be doctors, there will be bankers, there will be NGO people. Everybody should come along because they bring that ownership that, look, I can help you. I can find out that opportunity for that money, for example, if something is available. So these people then should work on very methodically some processes. And these processes I have identified in my documentation. Establishing the context, name of the village, geographical boundary, number of houses, size of the population, understanding the worldview, SWOT analysis. These are scientific terms. If you don't understand, don't worry. When you do those workshops, you will know. Then subsystem methodology, again, the worldview to see basically what is there, what is not there, and how can you develop a roadmap for the master plan. Then we go to identify what are the key issues in a particular village, what are the various categories of those issues, and then some of the categories could be, streetscape, beautification, restoration of the place, culture and heritage, education and skill, road and drainage, agriculture, and so on. So health and well-being. So any context we can take, and we can take any issues, and then we can start working on those issues to improvise. Then we have to develop the action plan. We have to develop the benefit analysis. Then roles and responsibilities has to be distributed within the special interest group. So, for example, a workshop of 50 people participants, there could be 10 different special interest groups. One might work for the agriculture side, another might work for the beautification side, another one might work for health and well-being and things like that. So every single smaller groups within the participants groups will have a very particular role and responsibility to play. And then finally, they have to look at basically what needs to be done, what are the regulatory obligations to be able to do something, and then how the effort can be leveraged. Who are the resources, where the resources can come from to do something, implementing the master plan and things like that. So then we need to really work on the implementation plan. We need to understand the scope, cost, time, risks, quality, and so on. And that is, we are taking the project management viewpoint here, which is quite not understood by many people in Assam, including the government. So projects are never delivered through the project management principles. That is the reason why I brought that construction management program to Assam Engineering College. So construction management, project management, they go hand in hand. Every single project has to be delivered as a project, as a single entity. It has to start on a particular time. It has to finish on a particular time. It has to have a scope and quality specifications, and it has to be delivered to the specification. But in Assam and in India, projects only starts. Projects never finish. So during the election time, thousands of projects will be initiated. Projects only start. Project never gets delivered. So they do not understand or they do not believe in the scientific principles of project delivery in the public sector. So that's a problem. So in our case, when it comes to the villages, we like to rather have the very small implementation plan so that we start, we finish, we monitor, review and finalization, and including the archival. So whatever the master plan we develop, that has to go into an archival, and I thought the local schools and local libraries could be our archival point so that we can upgrade all the time as we go. So this was my original idea, that we'll have 3 or 4 days, different sessions will come, and students, participants will be working hands-on and taking a village, including the site visits. They have to go to the site, they have to see the village, they have to meet the people, they have to talk to the people, they have to bring those ideas and develop these master plans in their working space. That was the whole idea. And then these are some examples here. You see, I'm talking about one of the issues, beautification of a village. So you see here the 4 pictures on the left. That maple tree, that's a Canadian maple tree, and that is available in Australia and Canada. And how in some of the roads look beautiful in spring because that maple trees are everywhere, and this green red leaves. That road itself becomes very attractive. And if you see the next picture is the cherry blossom in Japan. Cherry blossom is another native flowering tree that Japan has got millions, and they look beautiful in a particular season. Similarly, on the left hand side down there is a jacaranda, which is quite that's a jacaranda trees in series. As you can see in springtime, it gives a beautiful sight of that particular road. So this is how our villages should be. And then I'm bringing these 2 beautiful trees on the right hand side. This is Krishnasura and Polak. Polak and Krishnasura are native trees in Assam. But why we are not able to plant these trees in abundance in particular place so that the village are defined by these beauties? None. People are not interested in planting these trees. Why? Bokul tree, Hewali tree, and just name it. If you just have millions of bokul trees in a particular village, that bokul tree itself will give a aroma of the village. From 1 kilometer away, people will know we are going to the bokul gaon because the smell itself is bokul. So we do have the things, but we never appreciate. It's very important. So these trees, these flowers on the left hand side, as you can see, they are from the developed country, but in Assam we are we do not have any lack of these resources. We are there, but we are not quite getting the the points. Similarly, this is another example of community engagement, the local sports center. So every single local school can have this facilities, as we have got in Australia, in America, in Canada, in Europe, everywhere. So these are not the paid facilities; these are the public facilities. Anybody can go and play, including the school children. We can create these opportunities within our own community, within our own school, creating that partnership and bringing philanthropic fund or whatever, and creating these facilities for our kids. That is how we build the social capital. We build the well-being of the people. So this is another example. So these are the special interest groups that they can work in the workshop context as required in the special interest group within the workshop. In a particular village context, and come up with the master plan, what can be done, what cannot be done, and how can we do it. This is another example of fresh produces, organic farming, and local economy. So properly done. This is again an example from Assam, from India, but this can be done. And this is another very important example that I want to bring here is our Brahmaputra. Brahmaputra is a lifeline. It brings beautiful, fresh water, but we are considering Brahmaputra as a curse. And because, the left-hand side, you can see that non-structured, non-brainy, non-engineered solutions are not going to hold up. On the right-hand side, that house is about to be collapsed. But then what we are not realizing that the last 2 bottom picture, as you can see, the big trees are there in Assam. And if these trees are properly planted, properly maintained, properly harnessed, and planted in, massive rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 rows, 1 or 2 trees might go one day, but they cannot go that many all the time. So it will eventually have that a protection of the banks. We can do that. But we need the people from Dhubri to Sodia, or Sodia to Dhubri. Everybody has to be part of this project so that the Brahmaputra can be contained without any structural measures, by natural measures, and people will be amazed, that how these natural plants and trees can provide us this kind of support. That is happening around the world. Brahmaputra is no different, but nobody has ever interest to do that. So this is what we want to do. So I just, then every single problem that we work it out, we have to work out the viability analysis, we have to work out the effort and responsibility, we have to work out the milestones and outcomes, we have to look at the benefits, we have to look at the implementation plans. And I can show you, I have done some work with the group of people in Assam Engineering College as part of my previous engagements. And these kind of master plans are possible to be built. These are some people from public departments. Then we have, context is different. This is a preparatory stage of a drainage master plan for a particular area. I have used those people to be able to actually give me this kind of master plans in a very particular settings. So that is possible, but this is an example only. So this kind of, and this is a plan that I have worked for the people over one day. So if you have got 5 days and very specific to a particular village, we can potentially do a massive amount of good work, which can be implemented very easily. All right, so I stop it here. I guess, and this is what I have to say, because my time is almost up, and then there'll be new speaker. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, I just want to ask you one simple thing. So actually, I really want to do something for the farmers of Assam. Basically, they don't get enough money as compared to their hard work. So, sir, I just want to ask that from where can we start? I don't know from where to start.
So I think my answer to that, you cannot start for the entire farming community, for the entire state. You can't do that.
So I'm not going to do what I want to do for the.
Yeah, we have to start from somewhere. So you see what I am thinking at the moment. Look, Padmini, you can talk. I don't want to take too much of the time. So depending on farming means, what do you mean? What sort of farming you want to help? Who are the farmers and what do they have, what they do not have? But I was actually working on a micro farming in the villages. So for example, every single villages have got, every single household has got a small backyard or front yard. They do, small farming. Usually cow dung they use as a fertilizer. They are very good for health, and there's no pesticide, there's no chemical fertilizer. And these things are, if you can promote those ideas of everybody working in their own backyard, and somehow they can liquidate that produces locally, that will be a huge market. So somehow they can bring the stuff, and then children, women, and men, everybody can get involved in their own backyard without being ashamed of anything. And finally, if they can see that somebody is growing omita in their backyard, omita can be liquidated immediately against some cash, and then that cash can be used for buying something else. But at this moment, that kind of traction is not there. So this is one of the ways that I am trying to think. I am calling as rural trading centers, or rural trading centers for the organic produces. So that is one of my ways that I'm thinking. But in a macro scale, we have to take help of like Mr. Borua and other people think about it. And Padmini, I think we have to start from the baby steps and building it up. But I don't want to take too much of my time or your time at this moment discussing this. But these are the things that we can keep talking. And please. So he got to be, I think next speaker is Professor Robert Crawford. Is he on?
Yes. No, sir, he will be available at 12.
No, what is time now?
So it's 11:32.
Oh, sorry. So I have got half an hour now.
Yes, sir. So
really?
at 11:45 he will be here with us.
He's coming at, he's coming at 11:45. Why not 11? Yes. In the schedule, it is 11 to 1.
No, sir, it was 12 to 1.
Oh, sorry, 12 to 1. So what time? He's coming at 11:45.
Yes, actually we are giving the link 15 minutes before that.
Right.
For every
what
session.
Is time now?
So it's 11:32 now.
Oh, okay. So I don't have to be rushing. Okay, that's good. Let's discuss. I thought I'm done with the time.
Oh, okay, sir.
Yeah. So what do you think, Mr. Borua, what I said? Now you have to unmute your mic. Your voice is not coming through.
No, what you said is very pertinent.
Please check up.
What you said is very pertinent, and we need to have a paradigm shift as far as the entire rural bottoms-up policies are concerned. And I fully agree, because I always been a very strong advocate that we have to leverage the core competencies of various individuals and organizations in a win-win situation, and then bring about integrated rural development. Now, unfortunately, what is happening is this, that most of these organizations, they are at the grassroots level working on a standalone basis. They are not collaborating.
Yeah.
Second part of it is what I had touched upon in my also the recording which you can go through. I mentioned that the implementing agencies representatives stay in the villages. They do not generally stay in the villages. They commute under Indian road conditions, under Indian climatic conditions every day. They traverse long distances. By the time they are in the workstation, they are tired. And in course of the day, they are supposed to visit other villages also that they are not able to do. They are more interested to come back.
Yes.
And so it has been suggested that these dwelling houses are required in the villages where the implementing agencies representatives can stay there. They can stay there and then they can operate by staying in the villages. That is why what you said at the macro level, at the government level, that what is happening is that policies are all good because policies, some of the best brains goes into formulation of the policies.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, there is a gap between policy and practice. Why? Because at the implementing level, the implementing agencies representatives do not stay in the villages. In our country, the whole economy is inclusive growth. Their focus is on inclusive growth. While
that
we are
is the reason why.
inclusive growth, but then in practice, it's not happening.
So that is a very clear point, sir. What we need to do, as I have given an example, so 2,500 household survey, 20 pages long, can be done in 4 months. If it is me coming from Australia all the way to do that survey, could I have done that? Impossible.
Impossible.
How did I do it? I have trained those people. I have motivated them. I have given them a bit of an incentive, but they have done it. And these people did not get that much financial benefit at all. But because I was there, they feel like, okay, this fellow has come all the way. We must do something for him. So that kind of ambience was created. That kind of environment was created. So same thing happens. So if we are trying to develop the bottom-up kind of approach the villages, we need to give the ownership to the villages. Only people who are experienced, who are expert, they can facilitate the process, but the development has to come from within. That is very important.
Here, I just want to touch upon one thing. What is happening throughout the country, that education is displacing our human resources.
Completely.
With little education, they are leaving the plow. With more education, they are leaving the village. And in the process, what is happening, the city-bred youths are also not inclined to come and stay in the village and do. And the educated youths of the villages, they have also gone out of the village. So there is a vacuum created, and this vacuum is taken advantage by the antisocial elements and petty politicians, and they are virtually ruling the. And as a result, what is happening? The common people in the villages, they have lost their self-esteem. They are resigning to fate. So now your interventions, what you have said and what I have also been telling all along, I think such type of interventions, we can take it, as you said correctly. Let us identify some villages and then apply all our interventions, whatever we want, and prove it as a success story. Then demonstration effect in Assam plays a heavy role. And one thing I would like to clear, it is not that everything is given free, even though I had in my paper also touched upon, I said appeasement has to go, empowerment has to come in. With appeasement, we are unnecessarily making our people lazy and things like that. That is one part of a political year. But then as far as my understanding of being in Assam for the last so many years now, after having been throughout the country and abroad, what I understand now is this, that there are a lot of success stories now. A lot of these success stories requires to be highlighted.
Yes.
So you'll be glad to know a lot of youngsters, they've left their corporate jobs and have come back to Assam and they have started on their own or startups. And I'm associated with the startup ecosystem. I am very convinced that our young generation, our youths, they have huge potentiality, they are tech savvy. All that is required is that now for us to do a little bit of hand holding, give them the encouragement, inspiration that you can do, In fact, incidentally, I was there in Bangalore the other day on the invitation of a corporate house, and there they had said that we are finding so many SMEs or from Northeast, we are finding so many students, and then also in the IT sector, they speak so good English. And second part of it, they are also very, very diligent as far as their work is concerned. So we are wanting to take some interest, and then we have a talent discovery. We have a channel of, we call it the funneling sort of way, where we will impart training to the students. They are prepared to come to Assam and then impart training to the students and take them through a funnel process. Through the funneling, at the last penultimate stage, they will identify who is good as a job creator, who is good as a job seeker. So they will arrange for the placements, and such of those who are interested in creating jobs, for them the incubation, etc., all facilities they will provide. That means what is happening, as far as Northeast students are concerned, they have the ability, they have also the intelligence. All that is required is that they are also thinking that now we have to give them the people like you can play a huge role in giving, in inspiring them that these things can happen. As you said, you were there in Jorhat Indian SME school, and then from there you went to Jorhat Engineering College, and from there where you have gone, that means it is possible for them also. So
Yes.
we will have to give them some sort of encouragement. At the same time, we'll have to give them that sort of belief that that they can. And I am 100%. I am a die-hard optimist, despite knowing all the government functioning, etc., and all these things. So I do not depend much on the government.
Yes,
I said,
yes.
let us work more with the civil society. Let us more work with the villagers, and let us go and prove before them that yes, things can be possible. I am quite certain your ideas are excellent. I am appreciating, because I have been also talking for the last 20 years, more than 25 years, that we need to collaborate at the grassroots level.
Yes.
Without collaboration alone, we cannot do.
No,
And
alone we cannot do. I think my idea is that,
one small submission to you, let us not antagonize everybody.
no.
Even though we have experiences dealing with them and finding it very since we have got a mission, so achieving this mission, what we will do, even though we have some past bad experiences, that experiences we'll keep it closed door, and what we will do, we will try to take people into confidence and then accordingly move forward.
Very good, sir. I think that is a very important. That's why I'm saying that even though I have got a bit of a reservation or bad experience, disappointment, but I am not finger pointing to anybody. This is all about basically the public system.
Right,
so if
no, I agree. I agree with you. I agree fully with you.
So let's not worry about that. That is a constraint. Take as a constraint, because officers have to do the official work. They have been expected to do that, so they cannot simply bend their arms and legs and get into something. So, but we can have a parallel instrument where not only help the people understanding the need and empower them, but also we facilitate and we help the government machinery to function better, so that at the end of the day, government also going to be looking good. If they are a part of an empowered state, they will be also very much benefited as well.
We will walk through the third government, that is the panchayat. The panchayat
exactly.
And we have lots of people working in this area, and there we can have a panchayat academy, and you can impart training also to the panchayat people, so that we also, once we are able to make them into assets, then half the battle is won.
Yes, very much. And I think my Majuli work was through the panchayat only, because I made the panchayat secretary and the president. And then I have got a couple of people who works for the panchayat. They are the one actually who has helped me. And good thing is that they know in and out of the village. They know everybody in the block. So they can go and they can just talk in a very informal manner. Everybody respects them. And whenever they introduce me to those villagers, they feel, my God. And they also feel very good, because the panchayat is bringing somebody just to talk to them. I was in a Majuli missing villages and missing houses. I have been to the missings inside house and looked at their kitchen, the bedroom, the way they live. So these things are also known to me. But then missing houses are one in its own kind in this world. Not many people in this world I have seen live like our missings. They are not the point of ashamed. They are the point of proud. These missing villages itself can showcase to the rest of the world that there is a community, they live in a very particular way. And that is nothing but a good asset, good strength. And we can capitalize on that. People will come, people will stay as a homestay. Visitors, they will experience the missing culture by night. and they will be tourist dollar like anything. It is possible that we can capitalize on those opportunities and
Yes, yes.
open business to the rest of the world, just to showcase our heritage, showcase our value, showcase our culture. So that is what we would not like to miss. But again, now there are lots of people here, youngsters, and I can see lots of people here. Can anybody please talk and let us know what do you think? Are you interested with us to join this this mission and help your own community back in your own village? Is there anybody here? The heroes of the villages. You don't have to be shy. You can come along and say, look, sir, I am from this village. I am very much interested to work with my village community to improve. My village has got this. You can say like that. Is there anybody here? Or you don't have any experience of the villages at all? Anyone here out of 61 people, anybody has come from a rural village in Assam or anywhere in India? No one. You are all city goers, all born and brought up in cities. Is it true? Why nobody is talking? Can you talk?
Yeah, participant, I request to speak up. This is the opportunity to speak with this resource person of today. So he's all the way from Melbourne. So probably I think the interest group should come up. And
Okay,
you know,
can you write on your chat? Are you from a village or from a town? How many of you are born and brought up in a village that I'm talking about in Assam? The context of Assamese village. How many of you have seen a village? Can you just write on the side in the chat box if you are not able to talk? Can you say anybody? You are not from the village, right? Not many people are writing even. Only one fellow has written. Jubal is from a village.
I'm not born and brought up, but my origin is from a village. Not born and brought up in a village, but yeah, I'm from a village origin.
Good. So how many people can proudly say I'm from a village, I'm a villager, I do understand the village community, village life, and I'm really interested to help my villagers to empower and showcase their potential. Yeah, okay. So how many of you are, so not many people. That means, Mr. Ronghan, you picked up the people all from the cities. You are developing the smart villages, but you are bringing people from the cities?
Sir.
How
yes,
come,
yes. Please speak. Rashito, please speak.
How come we don't have any people, hardly 2 or 3 or 10 people in this entire community? So these are the wrong group of people, that means.
Sir, I was born and brought up from a village, from Visama village in Kohima district of Nagaland.
Why people are not able to write boldly that I am a villager? I know the village. You don't have to live in the village by now, but you should know that you know the village. You understand the village culture. Not many people are here.
Yes, Varsito, speak up. Yeah, Professor Dole, Varsito is online.
Who?
Sir, it's
Varsito from Nagaland is on the line. He want to speak.
Okay, yes, please. Yes. Go for it. Give the no. Yeah.
I was born and brought up from a village.
Yeah.
And then my village name is called Bisama village, or from Kohima district, Nagaland.
Yeah, excellent. So now, are you understanding our mission, our excitement, our objective, and are you interested to do something for your own village with the help of us in a group like this?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. So how many of you are in? Can anybody say, can you please write down I am in or I am out? Just write I am in or I am out on your chat box. I want to see the sentiment of the people. Okay, how many I am in, how many I am out? All the people who are there, can you just type I am in or I am out? Okay, one person is out. Right. So you can see here, that means people are a bit shy to speak out, but they are very much interested and they must be following, and that's why they are here. They are wasting their valuable time to come and learn something and be part of it. So that's really very good to see. That means our students, our people are not quite outspoken and they do not like to speak in public. But look, you got to really believing in yourself. It is very important, because I think one thing that we need to do in this day and age, in 21st century, if people like you do not come up and then realize the need of the hour, what can happen, in next 30, 40, 50 years, with the transformation process, rapid transformation process happening around the world, including our Indian villages, Indian communities, our Indian villages will be transformed into semi-urban hubs, semi-urban places without any culture being retained, without any characteristics being preserved. And sometimes what can happen, all the beautiful vernacular houses will be replaced with brick and mortar. They will be never beautiful, they will be never livable, they will never function the way it has been functioning over many thousand years. So some of the houses are in the flood prone areas. People live in those houses like a sang bongola. All the missing houses, the missing community normally lives by the flood, in the flood prone areas, and they have got the sang bongolas. But the good thing is that they can easily farm the pigs in the underneath, and during the flood season they can get the fish for free. So these are the easy way of living naturally. So, but if those villages are being replaced with the brick and mortar houses, for example, that will be a disaster, that will be a tragedy. You will that missing culture will be extinct. So it is very important that our villages retain the culture, and people like you and me in this kind of settings where we have got engineering education, we have got that experience, and if we do not do anything, if we do not bring that kind of importance into the highlight, then what can happen, that we will be missing that opportunity to be able to retain those culture, and yet capitalizing on those values and the heritage that is so much valuable over a long period of time. In the whole of Europe, for example, today, if you go to some of the places in the Europe, they are very much antique, old architecture, and whole world comes and sees them. And tourists are coming. Tourists are not coming to see the modern buildings. Tourists are always coming to see the old culture, our heritage. So our India, our Assam, we have got so much heritage, so much beautiful, pristine cultures, but we have to somehow preserve them, we have to highlight them, we have to make it appealing to the people to come and see. That is what basically our potential lies. It's very important that we all join hands, we bring that sort of awareness among the common people, and we start developing that alternative development model by taking the people on the side and then collectively working. So it is something that we can all do through this kind of initiatives.
Yes, very true, Professor Doloi. This is, the need of an hour also. I can assure you, the participants who are here, almost like 60 plus are there. And when we ask them from inside, and then we wanted to understand, like the same question, do you really want to help someone? Do you really want to empower someone? The answer is yes. Everyone who is present there will say, yes, I want to do something for my countrymen, I want to do something for my village. But the challenges or the bottleneck is that how to do it. So the mentor like you would be required here to, in order to, pull them all that, no, I'm there, don't worry. So walk forward. So this is there, sir. So because when we were sharing about
that's very good. So with BBEC and with your help in the local chapter, what is our plan? Let the pandemic first go away, let it be normal a bit. Then what we will do, we will just get a very core group of people who are really interested, and we like to really develop a dynamic group there, taking a particular village as their model village, going out to the field, meeting with those people, seeing those things in the first hand, and then bringing that one and develop their imaginary development model in in a collaborative manner. So we just let those groups to work together 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, and so on throughout the workshop, maybe more than one workshops. So then everybody can come, they can working out through their ideas and imaginations, having the brainstorming, and then work out something very sensible, very possible. And then based on that, then we work out the cost benefit model as well. See how much money is required to be able to implement certain ideas and where that money can come from. It can, I tell you, there will be philanthropers, there will be donors, there will be microfinancing available. Mr. Borua can help us maybe identifying some of the opportunities to be able to borrow the money, or maybe getting some CSR funding. As other day, Mr. Talukdar was talking about, they have done so many things across so many villages based on the CSR funding. So we should be able to, money should not be a deterrent here. But idea here is that first we have to get together, we have to adopt 1 or 2 villages of that kind as a model village. We have to come up with the implementation plans, what we wanted to do. Even the plantations that I'm talking about, if you are able to actually plant 5,000 plants of a particular breed, that can actually give you a beautiful aesthetic view in a season. That itself will be a point of attraction for people to come and see, right? So
Yes.
create that sort of ecosystem within our villages. So let's start with Vinasar Brahma Engineering College and this core working group of people. And we will, as I said, I promise to be with you physically. I will come to Guwahati, I'll come to your college, I'll stay in your guest house for 5 days. I will drive, I will go with you, I'll walk with you to the village of the nearby place. We will start working and then develop these master plans. And once we do that, then people like Mr. Borua, Samir Borua, and there will be many others of that kind of capable people. We will get their advice to see how quickly we can start something at that micro level. Okay, so money should not be a problem. I'm sure there will be many people who are even happy to donate the village development fund. So the other day that Minal Talukdar was talking about the village development committee. We can have the village development committee along with the village development fund. Everything will be done by the villagers only. But people like you and me, we need to really work with our scientific principles to be able to give some very meaningful, implementable model so that it is going to work. And not only delivery, but also the operations as well. How to maintain it, how to operate it, how to get the value, how to realize the value over time. So all these things are very important. So look, I really appreciate that everybody has come along, so many people, and so many people have got the interest with us. Let's keep it together and keep in touch as your local chapter with Vinasar Brahma. And as I said, our COSBAT conference is another event happening every year. This year also it is happening on the website webinar. So please join in. I'll make the information available about the webinar links and stuff like that on the website. And also, I think Mr. Ronghan, Dr. Ronghan has also given me your contacts as well. If you are interested, I can send you an email advising you about the workshop when this is happening, the program and stuff like that, so that you guys all can come along. So this workshop, this international conference I like to grow. Along with this workshop idea, I like to grow, and I like to really create that energy with you so that we can do something in our local villages. At least 1 or 2 villages if you start, I think you will see that the massive energy will be mobilized and people will just take it on.
Yes, Professor Doloi. Thank you so much. My apology, sincerely apology that due to my sudden commitment with the audit, I'm not able to.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm so sorry, but I hope that the session was very, excellent, because I was able to hear you while reaching this office here. So this is very good, and I'm very happy and blessed that you have boosted us, your energy to do well. And of course, Vinasar Brahma Engineering College team, all the students, especially Padmini, Hilal, Nilakshi, Juganta, these people are there to, to mobilize your energy to the real one or the real cause We will do it, sir. So thank you so much, sir. And looking forward also in future that, those things can be explicitly extend to different part of the country, especially the northeastern state country, like Varsito was saying, from Nagaland, you're interested. So we will do it. We will do it. Only we need is probably the guidance always, so that we don't fall it out in some time in between the work.
No, look, I think that's why it is a regular kind of event is important. These workshops, as I said, one-time workshop is not enough. You have to have a regular workshop, and maybe one village you have to have 10 times iterations. You have to improve. The master plan doesn't happen one day. Master plan happens as you go. You may have created something nice, but then that will lead to something else. So it has to be revisited, it has to be improved, and it has to be revised and reviewed all the time with the new people, new energy coming in. So that continuous process is very important for the improvement. I think, look, I think my colleague, Professor Crawford, Robert Crawford could be there now. I don't know whether he's joined in because his time will start soon. Before Padmini or Ilaksi introduces him, I just wanted to say a few words about him, and then I can pass it on to you guys to facilitate him and then start listening to him. Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, is Professor Robert Crawford is in?
Yeah, he's there. I've been informed that he is already in the room.
Okay, good, he's there. Okay, look, I think again, I really appreciate that my colleague Professor Crawford has taken this, opportunity to speak out in a group like this. And he's a very busy man. He's busier than me. But I'm really grateful that he has found his time and showing the commitment to you guys to come along online and then sharing his views. He's an expert in the environmental design and sustainability side of the things, as an expert in academia as well as in research field, and he has done some amazing research in life, contributing and impacting significantly in the industry through his creation of new knowledge, which is applicable. And Robert has been always the advocate of this particular program from day one. In our Assam project over the last 3.5 years, Professor Robert Crawford was always part of me, and he has visited Assam more than 3 times, I think. Every year we used to have a workshop as part of the program. So Robert used to come along with me, and Robert has visited Kaziranga National Park. He has visited Swalkusi village, that Bostronagar, the cloth city. And Robert has been there in Assam Engineering College for quite a few times. So he is aware of Assam. He's aware of Assamese culture, and he has been very much enjoying that kind of trips to Assam over the last 3.5 years. So sooner or later, again, we'll have an opportunity to meet with Robert as well. As I said, if workshop goes on, if we have got new opportunities coming up for the collaborations, I think I'm sure that Professor Crawford will be very much interested to visit you guys, meeting with you, and providing his Australian kind of insights in the context of Assam. So that is, again, me coming to Assam and talking in Assamese and giving you what needs to be done, what needs to be done, what should be done, is a different thing compared to if Professor Crawford comes along from Australia and then tells you basically what that means and how do they do it in Australian context, how that can leverage in the context of Assam. So it is very important. So I think please welcome Robert, and Padmini and Ilaksi, whatever ways you want to introduce him, do that. But this is my a few words on him. So we are very privileged to have him on board for this hour. Please welcome him.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Some people dream of success, while other people get up every morning and make it happen. A warm good afternoon to one and all present here. Respected Professor Dr. Robert Crawford, sir. Respected Dr. Hemanta Doloi, sir. Respected Samir Burwa, sir. Respected Dr. Madison Ronghang, sir. Respected faculty members of all the distinguished colleges, my dear friends, and all the esteemed participants. This workshop is jointly organized by Smart Village Lab Local Chapter, Unnat Bharat Abhiyan Unit, Binesha Brahma Engineering College and University of Melbourne, Australia. I, Padmini, welcome you all to the fifth day of our workshop cum seminar, Smart Villages by Intervention and Visible Solution. Today, we have among us Professor Robert, who is presently the Associate Professor of University of Melbourne. I am very privileged enough to introduce him to all the participants. Dr. Robert has broad research expertise and interest in the built environment, sustainability, life cycle assessment, and renewable energy. Recent experience has been centered on research into building environmental assessment with a particular focus on sustainable resource use, the environmentally appropriate selection of materials, and sustainable building design and feasibility. This work has involved improving life cycles assessment methodologies, performing extensive embodied energy assessments of building, their components, and renewable energy systems, and validations of embodied energy methodologies. He is an expert in modeling indirect environmental impact. Professor Robert is an associate professor in the Faculty of Architecture, Building and Planning, teaching in the areas of life cycle assessment, supply chain management, and prefabrication in construction. The contribution of Professor Robert Sir's work to the field of construction and environmental assessment has been demonstrated and acknowledged by various awards. He was also acted as a researcher, consultant, and advisor to several state government departments, research, and professional organizations. Professor Robert Sir's book, Life Cycle Assessment in the Built Environment, was published in the year 2011. It is a great honor and privilege to all of us to have you among us and to learn from you. It's a blessing, sir, to have you in this meeting. Thank you so much, sir, for accepting our invitation and gracing the program by your presence. Though virtually, sir, I, Padmini, on behalf of entire Assam and on behalf of entire BBC family and on behalf of entire participants, would like to greet you to Assam and namaskar, sir. Welcome to Assam. And without any further delay, I request you to continue with the session. Thank you, sir. Over to you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Padmini. Can I just confirm that you can see my screen?
Yes, sir, we can see.
Yes, excellent.
Yeah, we
Okay,
can see.
great. All right, thank you very much, both Hemanta and Padmini, for the warm welcome. It's very much appreciated. And I also want to say welcome to everyone, all the participants here as well. It's a real pleasure to be able to speak to you today. It would be really nice to be there in person. As Hemanta mentioned, this is the first year in 5 years that I haven't been able to make it to India, in Assam in particular. So I will get there, as Hemanta mentioned, in the near future, hopefully next year. But it is a bit strange not being able to make it there this year. And I would like to be able to meet you all in person at some point. So the topic of the presentation today is looking at environmental sustainability and how important it is when we're looking to design solutions for smart villages. And so I want to focus on that, but I also want to go into what we mean by a smart village as well. You've probably had presented to you over the course of the week various definitions of what a smart village is. And you've probably also got your own ideas of what you think a smart village is, whether you've been to one, whether you've seen information about different smart villages that have been developed in India and around the world. I tend to use this definition here, which is the definition that's used by the European Commission as a fairly reputable organisation. And it focuses on particularly the technology, the digital, innovation, telecommunications and things like that. So a very technology focused definition of what we think of a smart village. And that tends to be the broad understanding of what a smart village is. This is an example here. Harisal is in sort of central Western India. It is, they like to think of it as being the first digital village in India. I think there's a number of villages with that claim, but it was established with the help of Microsoft, who installed Wi-Fi towers, free internet. There's a digital centre for people to access the internet for free, cashless markets, healthcare cards, tele or medicine or e-health system as well. So there's a whole lot of things that have been done in villages already around the smart technology side of things. And that's, I guess, where we get our definition of smart villages as being very technology focused. And that sounds really great. You know, it's fantastic that we give our villagers and the people in these communities, particularly remote communities, access to better technology, better healthcare, better education, you know, social connectedness, being able to connect with each other, sell products and things like that. It's fantastic. But what I want to explain during this presentation is why that isn't enough, why we must do more when we're designing solutions for smart villages, and why we're designing smart villages, full stop. Now, to place the rest of my presentation into some context, I want to remind all of us of one of the most critical global challenges that we're currently facing. And this is no better described than by David Attenborough at the climate conference in 2010. Some of you might have seen this already. Okay.
I think the voice is not coming through, Robert.
Okay, I'm sure I'm sorry about that, but I'm sure the text was down the bottom. So basically, you know, I'm assuming everyone picked up that. I'll play it quickly again, just in case you didn't. It's very short. So right now we're facing a man-made disaster of global scale. And it's one of our greatest threats in thousands of years, which is climate change. If we don't do anything about it, then we're facing the collapse of our civilizations and extinction of much of the natural world on the horizon, potentially much of it in our lifetimes. So I think that's just a reminder about the issues that we're currently facing. And we've seen further evidence of this just this week. Only a few days ago, there was media about the latest chunk of glacier that's broken off in Greenland. And so this is evidence that the world is warming, the ice is melting, and you know, we're going to see sea level rises and issues across the world. This particular piece of ice that's broken off doesn't look like it's substantially that big here. It's about 80 kilometers from bottom to top and 20 kilometers wide. So it's a huge chunk of ice that's broken off, which is going to have consequences obviously for the warming of the ocean and the rise of sea levels in particular. And to give you an idea of the scale of that, it would fit into, you know, from top to bottom, it's about the same distance as the top to the bottom of the east and western peripheral expressways around New Delhi. So it's a massive piece of ice that's broken off. So really significant in terms of climate change. And a major contributor to these issues, particularly global warming and climate change that we're facing, is the energy that we're using. And this is particularly increasing in developing countries. And I give an example here of India. Most participants are from India and in India, I imagine. And you can see here that from this year until in 2040, so 20 years time, the amount of energy demand within India alone is going to almost double. And most of the emissions issues that we're facing are energy related. It's about the energy that we're using in particular. And the other issue with this is that you can see here that whilst, you know, there's going to be an increase in the amount of renewable energy being used, the largest increase is actually in fossil fuel-based energies. And these are the energy forms that are creating most of the issues that we're facing. Another issue is the demand for materials. And one of the major contributors to that is cement. And the production of cement represents around about 5% of global greenhouse gas emissions. And India in particular, but many countries around the world have a huge demand for cement to manufacture concrete in infrastructure and buildings. And this is rising at an exponential rate because we've got an increasing demand for construction. You can see here the incredible rise in the production of cement, particularly over recent years in the last decade, or sorry, the last century or so. And one of the key drivers for this demand is increasing living standards and expectations. People want bigger and better houses. They want to be more comfortable in their houses. They want high levels of technology. And with this brings an increasing demand for resources, whether it's energy, materials, water, a whole range of different resources that we need to satisfy those demands. And one example of this is a rapid increase in demand for air conditioning, for example. And this is a perpetual cycle. As we have more people starting to use more fossil fuel-based energy for things like air conditioning, that further increases the amount of energy we're using and the greenhouse gas emissions that are being produced, making the world even hotter. And therefore, we need more air conditioners just to make our houses cooler and be able to cope with the hotter temperatures. And so it's a cycle. We get things are just getting worse and worse as we go if we don't do anything about it. And you can see here the demand for air conditioning across the world. It's going to, between now and 2050, it's going to more than double, almost triple in terms of number of air conditioners in the world. And what's interesting here is the fact that India represents the largest demand, projected demand for air conditioning in the world. You can see there's a massive projection in terms of the growth in the number of air conditioners required. And with that's going to come demand for energy and greenhouse gas emissions as a result. The other issue we're facing is global population increases. India alone, for example, is expected to become the most populous country in the world, surpassing China within the next 1 to 2 years. We're heading towards 9.7 billion people within the next 30 years in the world. And this is going to have implications for demand for resources as well. And that is increasing demand for things like housing. And it has particular relevance for villages because this is where a large proportion of this population growth is going to occur. You can see here in this graph, the expectations or the demand for housing in urban areas is significant, around 70 million houses. But in urban areas or rural housing, it's even much more significant. So going from around about 350 million houses needed this particular time up until over 500,000. So it's an extra 200 million houses that are needed in the next 10 years, just in rural housing for India, for example. And this means that when we're designing smart solutions for these villages, where these houses are going to be, that we have a responsibility to ensure that we consider the environmental consequences of our decisions. Because it's these villages that are going to account for a significant proportion of future global environmental impacts. And I'm sure that you've all heard of the Housing for All scheme from the government of India. That scheme proposes to build 20 million new houses within the 7-year period from 2015 to 2022. And that's a significant number of houses, but it doesn't come anywhere close to the 200 million houses that's needed in the next 10 years to house the growing population of a country like India, for example. The other thing is that these houses that are being built, and here's a few examples here of the houses that are being built under the Housing for All scheme, are still using very traditional materials. So you can see here, they're still using concrete and masonry, brick and mortar type construction. And these are the very materials that are causing much of the issue from a material perspective. So the cement, for example, in the mortar and in the concrete is contributing significantly, and it will continue if we're going to build, for example, 200 million houses in India in the next 10 years. So we need to do much better than this because these materials are extremely resource intensive, very energy intensive, and very emissions intensive to produce. And it's only going to make things worse if we continue to build in this particular manner. And continuing on this particular path of development is only going to increase the emissions that we're already seeing. This is last year's atmospheric CO2 levels. And we know, I'm sure most of you should have been well aware of how things are going in terms of atmospheric CO2 levels. They keep on climbing at a very rapid rate. Air pollution is going to get worse. Already, the region of the world that India is in has got some of the worst polluted air in the world. And there's around about half of the global population that is living in cities and countries that have got unsafe air quality. And so we can't keep on doing the things the same way we are when it comes to building our cities and villages. And the types of materials that we're currently using to build our cities and our villages, houses and so forth, they're a major contributor to the predicted growth in resource demands as well. So from 2010 to 2050, the expected growth in demand for natural resources, and I'm talking about fossil fuels, biomass, ores and non-metallic minerals like sand and limestones and things like that, predicted to grow by 2.5 times. So all that extra resources that we're extracting from the earth. And these resources are non-renewable, the majority of them. So at some point in time, we're going to run out. And those resources are going to be depleted. We won't have them anymore. And we've already seen the devastation impact this can have on communities and regions around the world. This is the example of Easter Island, but there are many other regions of the world as well where communities have been left decimated by the loss of resources and lack of resources to meet their daily needs. And that might be food, water, or material resources. So going back to the definition I put up at the start of what I believe a smart village, what the definition I use of a smart village generally, one of the most common ones, one of the key elements of this is that a smart village is made smart for the benefit of inhabitants. And kind of highlight that in the red text there. It's using all this technology, the digital means, telecommunications, but for the benefit of inhabitants. Right? And we can't forget that. However, the way we currently do things is degrading the environment, which isn't necessarily benefiting inhabitants of villages or village communities. So what we need to do is we need to consider the impact on the environment when we're designing and implementing smart village solutions. And if we don't do that, then what I would say is that what we might call a smart village is actually quite a very dumb village, because it doesn't ensure that the environmental sustainability is a key focus, just as much, if not more, than the focus of technology. It needs to be just as important as providing amenity and technology to the inhabitants of these villages. These are some of the more common smart village solutions that are used, that we typically see in what we call smart villages traditionally. E-literacy skill, developing e-literacy skills through the use of computing and technology and access to education. E-health, again, through the access through technology to remote medicine and remote healthcare and other basic services. Solutions for environmental concerns, dealing with water, waste, energy supply, sewerage and all those sorts of things. Circular economy applications, agricultural waste, using the waste from agriculture, what might normally be waste from agriculture for other purposes, compost and regenerating the land and so forth. Promoting and selling local products through the use of IT and connecting villages and villages to other communities and to cities, for example. So all of these things, a lot of them are very technology focused. And as we know, the definition of smart villages really has a very technology focus. So these are the sorts of things that we see in the types of villages that we consider at the moment to be smart. The other thing that we need to consider is that while these solutions might provide benefits to communities, better healthcare, better education, jobs, all those sorts of things, they also result in a demand for resources. They result in waste being produced, emissions being released, pollution. We can't do anything really without using resources from the earth and producing waste and emissions and so forth. And this is because that anything that we do, anything that we produce requires inputs of things like materials, energy, water, and it results in the release of things like waste, emissions, greenhouse gases, pollution, and other things like that throughout the life of those products that we might produce. And I'm talking about things like mobile phone towers you might put in, internet infrastructure, IT equipment, computing and wiring and solar panels, wind turbines, and other types of hardware and facilities that you might put into a village to make it what we call smart. They all require an amount of resources to produce those items and to run and operate those items. And this makes the environmental issues worse, particularly if we do things the way we currently do them. We use the same materials, we use fossil fuels to produce those materials and to run that equipment and so forth. It's only making things worse, not better, from an environmental perspective at least. So my proposition is that it's really important that we balance this amenity and access and everything that we get through the use of technology in smart villages with the environmental consequences of doing that. And we make sure that we're not making the environmental performance of our villages worse by integrating all of this new technology into them. We should be taking an integrated approach where we actually improve the environmental performance of our villages with the use of this technology, not the other way around. So I guess one of the questions you're probably asking, and I heard a couple of questions in the previous session with Hemanta asking, how do we go about this? What do we actually have to do to create villages that are smarter on the ground? So the question I want to answer now is, how do we prioritise environmental sustainability when we're designing smart villages and identifying solutions for smart villages? Well, I guess there's really two approaches to this. One approach is one that's very common. It's an easy, I guess, in a way, an easy approach. It's very traditional, even in developed countries, and how we integrate environmental sustainability into design of buildings and cities and master planning and things like that. And that's where we basically design what we intend to be a smart village, particularly from the technological perspective. It might be new housing, businesses and so forth as well. We then attempt to assess the performance of that particular solution, master plan or a design for a particular village. We identify areas where we could improve it from an environmental perspective. Maybe it's using too much energy, maybe it's using too much water, maybe there's lots of waste being produced. What can we do then to fix it up? And we retrofit solutions onto our original design. So we might just put some solar panels onto the roofs of the housing, for example. This isn't a very integrated approach. And what we end up finding is that it's very inefficient. It can be very wasteful in terms of time and cost, but also resources, because we end up designing something and then we tack extra things on to the top. What I would say is the preferred approach is a more integrated approach to designing smart villages, sustainable smart villages. And that's where we actually integrate the design of the smart village with environment as a key driver to that. So, for example, you might, rather than just putting solar panels onto on the top of a steel roof above a new house, you might actually integrate them into the roof, so you don't actually need the steel anymore. And the solar panels provide the power for the house, but also the cladding for the roof of the house in the village. So little things like that, where you actually think more holistically about, okay, what are the real needs of this house and how can we integrate things and reduce the demand for resources? So in that case, then the village is, you're able to actually optimize resource use, you can minimize environmental impacts more and reduce the costs as well overall. So the village is then considered to be smart, not just from a technological perspective, but also from an environmental perspective. And equally as well, which is really important. And when we're looking at developing scenarios for smart villages, we also need to think, there's a tendency to look to the developed world to see how things are done and to replicate them. But we need to remember that the developed world isn't perfect, and the developed world has made a lot of mistakes, and things that are done are not necessarily the best solution as well. So we need to be careful that we don't just replicate what's been done in the developed world, but we learn also what not to do. We learn from the mistakes of the developed world, and what we call leapfrog over those mistakes into what is a more preferred environmental outcome, straight to that, rather than having to go through all the same mistakes again. So what we did, and this was fairly early on in the Smart Villages Lab in Melbourne, when we established that, we came up with a framework for developing environmentally sustainable smart villages. And it's a 4-step process that I want to go through with you now. It first of all starts with understanding the current performance of a village. Then secondly, understanding local context. Then identifying and analysing potential solutions for a smart village, and then actually designing and implementing them, obviously. There's no point coming up with ideas and actually not implementing them on the ground. So I'll go through each of those different steps in detail. The first one is about understanding the current performance. And what that does is it helps us understand where the greatest issues are and what needs to be addressed most urgently. Maybe it's the fact that there's significant pollution in a village. Maybe there's a lot of energy being used. Maybe there's no access to energy. Maybe there's no access to water or clean water. What it does is it allows us to work out, okay, what are the core needs of this particular village? And then we can address those specifically and put our priority onto those aspects. And this initial assessment of the current performance of a village covers a broad range of environmental criteria, and you can see them here on the screen. Everything from the greenhouse emissions that are being produced as a result of what's happening in the village, to the use of land and how that's being degraded, the impact on the health of the water and the animals, the amount of water being used. All these sorts of criteria can be assessed in a particular village. And this stage is really important because we can't just assume that villages are performing poorly across every one of these aspects. Now, there's actually a chance that villages could be performing sustainably already. And what we don't want to do is just do a whole lot of stuff and assume that it's going to make things better and find out it's actually making things worse. For example, with energy sources, a lot of villages are probably already using energy in a quite sustainable manner. They're probably using energy that is renewable, for example, burning waste materials and things like that. And if we then convert them to other forms of energy, it might not actually necessarily be as good. A lot of villages also use very natural materials to build their housing. Bamboo and materials like that. And if we suddenly say, well, a concrete or a brick building is actually much better environmentally, well, it's probably not. So we've got to be very careful about the solutions we come up with and the alternatives that we choose to put into these villages with the intent of saying that they're sustainable. So we actually need to understand what's currently done to understand whether we can actually make things better or not. And we do actually risk making things worse, not better, if we don't assess the current performance of villages. Now, this current performance can be assessed at the regional level, at the country level, and most importantly, I think, down at the village level. But we need to understand what's happening at the regional level first. And we can do that by looking at some of the global statistics about what's happening in different regions, particularly the region that India is in. And from a regional perspective, we know that due to many of the reasons that I highlighted before, that energy demand is increasing, particularly in this region. We also know that demand for materials is increasing, and much of this is because of the population increase. And the rapid development that's occurring is also very carbon intensive, not just from the cement that's being used, but the transportation emissions, all of the other things that happen in a developing world where you've got more and more people demanding more and more resources. And you can see here that the countries, particularly countries in the Asia region, China, India, the emissions intensity of those countries is actually getting worse year on year. It's not getting better. And that's indicated by the countries below the horizontal black line there. So there's obviously a long way to go to improve what's currently happening in many countries. Pollution is also quite bad. It's the area, Assam and northern India and those surrounding countries have got some of the worst pollution in the world. So we know that there's an issue there. We know that that's one potential area for improvement that we can work on. And that's at the regional level, and we'll get down to the village scale shortly and why that's important. At the country level, we can use data from a range of different sources as well. And this data here is from Yale University's Environmental Performance Index for India. And what it shows is that India ranks about 141st out of 108 countries assessed. And it performs quite poorly across many of the areas that they've assessed in terms of environmental performance. And what we can do is we can then drill down into some of this data and identify what the biggest issues are. And again, as I said before, air quality is one of the key issues that they identify as bad, and it is also something that's getting worse and worse as well. So the last 10 years, air quality in Countries like India has actually got worse. And this isn't going to be news to any of you that are living in India, of course, but it does reinforce the need to consider the impact that smart village solutions have on a critical environmental challenge such as air pollution. Okay, so when we're designing and coming up with different solutions for smart villages, we really need to think about making sure that we're not creating more air pollution and potentially even absorbing or reducing some of that current air pollution through the things that we do. We can also use the Sustainable Development Goals as a way of understanding current performance at the country level. And many of you have probably heard of these before. There's several of them that relate to sustainability in particular, or environmental sustainability, I should say. They all relate to sustainability. But for those that are related to environmental performance, India ranks quite poorly. So you can see here, the goals 7, 11, 12, 13 and 15 are the ones that are most related to environmental sustainability. And India ranks, the red ones are the worst performing, so quite poorly in terms of clean energy use, sustainable cities and communities in particular. So again, they are areas that we know at a country level, we can do much better and we can find solutions to try and deal with those issues. And they rank India 116th out of 157 countries, obviously fairly poorly across most of those categories. So this makes it really clear that a lot more can be done, particularly in relation to these particular aspects of the environment. However, the third level of understanding current performance is at the village scale. And understanding performance at this scale is really important because every village is different. I know there's a number of you here that have been born in a village or have an association with a village or even currently live in a village. And I'm sure you know that your village is completely different to the next village across. There are no two villages that are identical. And so the problems that originate from an environmental perspective at the local level, the village level, are usually best addressed at that local level. Because a solution for one village isn't necessarily going to be the best solution for the next village. So we need to understand how each village performs. And what we did, so before I go on, what we did as part of some of the early research at Smart Villages Lab in Melbourne, which Hemanta led, was we looked at developing some data on how villages currently perform, because we found that there is very little data about the performance of individual villages. And so Hemanta led the development of a survey that was conducted on the island of Majuli in Assam, and there was over 2,000 houses that were surveyed across 37 local villages to find out sort of broad demographic information about the people that were living there, about the housing they were living in, and the sorts of things that they did on a daily basis. And that gave us some really good insight into how they live and what some of the potential issues are at the village level. And so we looked at the different housing materials that are used. We found that traditionally, most of the housing was using very basic, minimal processed materials, bamboos and very primitive type materials, which are traditionally and usually much more sustainable to use than materials like concrete and brick and steel and things like that. So from an environmental sustainability perspective, they were performing quite well compared to new cities and new villages that are built out of concrete and brick and so forth. From a transport perspective, we found that it was quite sustainable in terms of the transport modes that were being used. Most people were walking, riding, and then using motorbikes. So fairly efficient, resource efficient forms of transport and getting around. The same thing with heating and cooling in the houses. So obviously quite primitive, not many houses had air conditioning or heaters. Most only had a fan at best. And this is obviously a much more efficient way of conditioning a space. And obviously it's not as effective as air conditioning or heating, but it's obviously using less energy and resources than if you had every house having an air conditioner and a heater inside it. We've obviously got to balance the comfort of the people and the health of the people in the houses as well, which is an important thing to consider, which I'll talk about when I finish up later on. But on the other hand, for something like cooking, the current practice is actually quite resource and emissions intensive. So kerosene was the most common fuel source, followed by firewood and LPG. And these are very emissions intensive. When you burn them, they release greenhouse emissions into the atmosphere directly. So they're not the best resources or fuels to use for cooking if you're trying to minimise your environmental impact. So whilst in some areas, the villages were performing quite well from an environmental perspective, in some other areas they weren't. And so this gives you some insight into which areas you need to focus on most. And so maybe the fuels used for cooking is one of the first things you could start looking at in terms of looking for alternatives to improve the environmental performance of these villages. Now, the second stage of this framework is understanding local context. And that might be understanding what resources are available in the villages and surrounding areas, what the community needs are, what their existing skills and expertise are, and what are some of the cultural factors, some of the things that they do in their villages that are important to them. And this is best done by observing and speaking with the actual villages themselves and the communities themselves. It's really important because the possible solutions that you propose might be dictated by currently available resources or expertise or practices. And when you're working with these existing conditions, in terms of what resources are available, maybe there's a lot of bamboo, for example, maybe there's a lot of people that have got really good skills at building, or other types of expertise. It makes sense to work to those strengths. And reduce the need for dramatic adaptation and reskilling and so forth. So if you can use the existing resources and the existing skills and expertise that exist in that particular village, then it's going to cause less, it's going to be less change and less dramatic change for the people living in the village. And then the third stage is where you identify and analyse potential smart village solutions. Now, the solutions that you come up with must address the issues you identified, okay, and ideally prioritise them based on the order of importance. So the things that are causing the biggest issues, the things that are most important to the villages. And then consider also the local context. Right? So identifying issues, for example, in the example I gave before with the villages in Majuli, it might be the fuels used for cooking. Considering local context, what other fuels are available, easily available and maybe cheap to use as alternatives. And that might be a good place to start to look for better ways of providing fuel for cooking in that situation, for example. Solutions should also provide long-term benefits. So for example, it's important to ensure that they're able to be easily maintained and not left with a liability. So if the villagers don't know how to maintain equipment that's been installed and systems that have been installed in their villages to do different things, then what happens is they can just fail. When they fail, they won't get repaired and they'll just sit there and not be used. And things will go back to potentially the way they were before. So part of that, a really critical and important part of that, and I'm sure Hemanta mentioned this earlier, is education and training. Is really building up that capacity in the local villages in particular so that they can fix things themselves. They can improve things and work on things and make things better within their village themselves as a community and not have to rely on expertise external to them. In the early stages of the implementation of smart village solutions, they often do need to rely on external assistance. All right? So there is a point where you need to bring in people. And I think for many villages when they're first starting out, this is the sort of really critical time where you're starting to plan what's important, you're trying to understand what the key issues are, and you're trying to come up with really practical solutions that are going to help everyone. So bringing in expertise, whether it's people that have an understanding about, local culture, or whether they have an understanding of how to build and how to design buildings and different infrastructure systems is really important. But also akin to, or alongside that is funding. And often one of the barriers to implementing things in villages is a lack of funding, a lack of money and resources to be able to do things. And so if you can bring in assistance in that form, that can also help speed up the process of implementing smart village solutions. We also need to analyse potential solutions to ensure that they're providing an environmental benefit. So I've said that it's important that we balance the technology side of the smart villages with the environmental side of the smart villages. And to do that, we actually need to know that the things we're coming up with are actually providing an environmental benefit. They're not making things worse environmentally. So there are a whole range of tools that we can use and resources to assess different strategies for improving a village and different solutions we might come up with. Bioregional's One Planet Living framework is just one example of that. And they cover a whole range of different environmental criteria, which you can use to assess the performance of a particular community or village. Some of you may have heard of this before, but it's quite globally it's used particularly in developed countries, but also in developing countries. Covers a whole range of different environmental and non-environmental based aspects, including social and economic sustainability. And then the fourth stage of the framework is really designing and implementing sustainable smart villages. Because as I said before, there is no point proposing all of these things and actually never implementing them. No one's going to benefit unless they're implemented. So it's about using the appropriate expertise, as I mentioned before. So having people that have got skills in design, master planning and so forth, and the different systems that are needed or integrated into villages. I think one of the really important and critical aspects of this implementation stage is engaging with the community, because it's the community, the people in the villages that have to live in the village. So the solutions that you come up with must suit their lifestyles, their culture, their way of doing things. It must meet their needs. And what we call, the best way of achieving this, we call a thing called co-creation. And it's working, with the experts that understand and have done this sort of stuff before, but engaging the community to make decisions and not making decisions for them. So you help inform the community, you help educate them, give them options, but you listen to them and you allow them to actually come up with solutions at the same time collectively. And I think it's really important that this approach is used when we're developing smart villages. This is an example of a smart village, another smart village. In this case, it is one that doesn't have necessarily a very strong technological focus, at least from the outset. So Anandwan Smart Village is in central India. I'm not sure if anyone's heard of it, but it was originally developed a number of decades ago now for social outcasts, people with leprosy and things like that. So what happened though, it was developed into an almost entirely self-sufficient community. I think there's only about 1 or 2 types of food product that they actually import from outside of their community. Otherwise, they grow all of their own food. They sell it to neighboring villages. They manage all of their waste. They turn waste plastics and things like that into usable products. They produce their own energy. They've developed employment opportunities and sell products and items to other villages. They've reforested areas of the village that used to be an old mine site, for example, bringing back habitats with lots of animals and birds and things like that. So it's a really good example of what a community can do with the will and the support to actually make things better. And it brings back it doesn't just address the environmental issues, but it actually brings the community together as well as a whole to work with each other and improve the social connectedness as well. And one of the things that's really unique about Anandwan is that sustainability is very much a part of their approach to a smart village, and just as important as any other aspect. As you can see here, they've got the acronym SMART, and they've got a definition of what each of those means to them. And in fact, while S might come before T in the word SMART, so it makes sense that sustainable is going to be before technology in that context. But I don't think that's a coincidence, because the way that they talk about their smart village, sustainability is really ranked higher than technology. And you can see that's why they've put the SMART top to bottom rather than left to right, for example, because in terms of priorities, sustainability is actually more important than the technology. And you don't hear a lot about the technology aspects as much as the sustainability aspects. And this brings me to the importance of a broader focus on sustainability, which is the economic and the social aspects. In understanding the local context and improving the environmental performance of villages, we also need to understand the social and economic implications of the solutions that we propose. Okay, so we don't want to propose something that's going to improve the environmental sustainability of a village if it means there's going to be no jobs. People are going to lose their jobs. So we need to understand, what the current jobs are, what currently people do, what industries are existing in those particular villages, and then how do we work with them to make sure that those industries, maybe not close down, but maybe we improve how they perform environmentally. It shouldn't be about closing particular industries down that aren't sustainable or environmentally sustainable. For example, brick production, burning of agricultural waste. They create a lot of emissions, a lot of pollution, for example. But realizing that the jobs and social inclusion and equity and fairness, etc., are all just as important and should be developed in a very sustainable manner as environmental sustainability is. So this brings me to my final slide, and really what I want to say, and hopefully what you picked up out of this presentation, is that the environment must be an integral part of smart village design. It shouldn't be something that we tack on or we consider later on. It should be something that we focus on from the start, because if we don't, we're just going to exaggerate and exacerbate those current global issues that we're facing from an environmental perspective. We also need to make sure we're taking a very bottom-up approach. So we're engaging with the community and we're allowing them to inform what their village is actually like through a co-creation approach. Understanding what their needs are and what their wants are, but also informing that with educated experts in the field. And finally, as I said, we're really lacking a really detailed understanding of a large range of villages. And this, I guess, goes to the point that Hemanta made just earlier, was that we need to get on the ground. We need to talk to the villagers and find out what their needs are, what their issues are, and get a better understanding of that before we actually propose solutions for villages. And thank you very much, everyone, for listening. And it's a pleasure to be able to present to you. Are there any questions? I guess I imagine we've got some time for questions.
Yeah, I think questions should come through. I think that was a very good presentation, Robert, and I think I'm sure that the same views will be shared among the audience as well. Audience, this is your opportunity to ask questions to Robert.
Everyone's thinking.
Yes, Robert. So, hello. Yeah, Robert, thank you so much for the nice presentation. No, it's really very much motivating and very much good to see, that you touch upon all the, important parameter of to make a village very much rejuvenating. Thank you so much. So participant, I would like to request to, calm yourself, because I'm a little bit in remote area. So I'll not be able to, moderate and guide it in a proper way. Very much frankly and very much nice and very humble, so you can calm yourself voluntarily and then discuss with him. Robert, my sincere apology, I cannot be today with you on live there, but yes, I'm remotely connected with a mobile phone. I came here for an audit, sudden audit was there, but I'm very hopeful that in future we will connect it more way.
Excellent. All right, thank you. I'm happy to take some questions if anyone's got any.
Yes, please. Participants are requested to come themselves live. You can unmute and speak. Since I already told that Mr. Robert is very much friendly and he's very much humble to answer all the question you have. Please come forward. And Robert, again, I'm very sorry. I could not be there with you because of my sudden commitment with the auditor here. I'm very sorry. So please, participant, come forward.
Dr. Onghan, there is no difference where you are joining from your office or from somewhere remote station. You are still here live.
Thank you so much, Professor Doloi. Thank you so much.
So it seems like the students are very passive. Sometimes they are very much enjoying the presentations from the speakers, but they are not quite confident to ask the questions. I'm sure there are many questions in their minds, but sometimes maybe because of lack of proficiency in English, or a bit of lack of fear in public speaking, people are a bit introvert, looks like. So look, you can always type the questions if you don't want to speak. That's one way. Otherwise, I think if you don't have any questions, and I'm sure that this is all recorded, people are going to listen a couple of times perhaps. This is very scientific what Robert has presented compared to what I was speaking. But I think this is a great lessons for all of you to take with a take-home message that the interventions are highly scientific, evidence-based, and we not only do the smart village for fun, but this is really need of the hour, as Robert has very clearly articulated in terms of the climate change and sustainability and things like that. So I think I always tell the people that, look, our Assamese people in the rural places are almost like carbon neutral or carbon negative people. So missing families are not emitting any carbon from the missing villages. They are very much like an indigenous people living in a very vernacular kind of lifestyle. So, and then if you look at people like us in Australia, for example, the amount of resources that we consume, it has got quite a lot of energy, embodied energy and emission attached to that. So I think it's very important that we try to contain that sort of pristine conditions of those villages and develop in a very scientific and meaningful manner, so that we do not need to replicate the mistakes of the waste that has happened over the last 30, 40, 50 years. So modernizing a particular community doesn't need to be going through brick and mortar kind of solutions and then changing and going back to the climate change mitigation. So rather start from the beginning and understand their the carbon neutral kind of lifestyle and develop from there. So that requires some sort of scientific intervention. And people like you and me understanding this kind of this kind of knowledge, having exposure to this kind of resources that in this forum that we are discussing, we are very much well placed to be able to take a leading role and contribute in that space.
And I'll add, thanks Hemanta, I'll add to that also, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to improve people's lives and amenity to services and health and all that sort of stuff, education. But at the end of the day, it's really trying to improve people's lives. And the best way to do that is really to talk to people, find out what issues they've got, what are the problems that they're facing, and then come up with solutions. We can sit in our offices and read lots of books and things like that and guess what people might want. But until we actually get on the ground and start talking to people and understanding the situation that they're in and the challenges that they're facing, we really don't know what the real needs are and what the best solutions to those needs are. And whether that's from an environmental perspective, whether it's from a healthcare perspective, education, whatever it might be, anything.
Hello, sir. I'm Padmini.
Yeah.
Yes, I want to ask that the main reason why the people of rural areas are lacking behind is due to lack of technical knowledge. But will the modern technical knowledge somehow affect the environment? So I just want to know that if we introduce a modern technical knowledge to the people residing in rural areas, though in contrary, will the modern technology somehow affect the environment of those rural areas?
In some way it will, yeah. And whether that environment is affected in the rural area, in the village, or where the technology is being made, because the technology is not usually being made in the villages. If we're talking about internet technology, computing, IT, and all that sort of stuff, it's not being made in the villages; it's being imported in. So the impact is actually occurring elsewhere in the world, but we could say that the village is responsible for that impact because they're the one that's using the technology. So not all impacts are visible and are occurring in the actual place where the technology is being used, It's really understanding, the broader, supply chain or, connections of those impacts that occur throughout the world that's important, and minimizing that as much as possible. So it's very complex and technical, and to ask villagers to understand that it can be quite, I imagine, quite difficult. And that's why, you need advice and experts to come in and help make those decisions and educate villagers.
Yeah, Padmini, you got the answer. I think that is a very right answer in a way. So basically, you got to really
Yes,
work
sir.
it. There will be some footprint always, but depending on basically, that's why you got to minimize the footprint of carbon.
Yes,
And
sir.
what interventions there, how do you work on that interventions that is required in a very context-specific kind of need. You do only like a purpose-built kind of facilities, whatever is needed as a bare minimum for modernizing their life and upgrading their life. That is what we got to do. It should not do more than what is needed to be done, because that is what the context-specific intervention is about.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. So there is also a question in the chat box. So with your permission, can I read it out?
Yes, sure.
Please go for it.
Yeah. So the question is from Kalyani. She's asking, so can you suggest anything for plastic waste? Can we make it useful somehow?
Yeah, so a really good question. Actually, I'm going to use that example of an Anandawan Smart Village. They actually use plastic to manufacture construction materials. So they use it in bricks. They mix it with bitumen in their roads. And actually, this is something that's used in Australia. It's called Hemanta, do you remember? Plascrete or something like that. But it's a plastic, a bitumen sort of road surface embedded with plastic. And they also use it, they mix it with cotton to make bedding, like sort of pillows and mattresses and things like that. So they really don't waste anything. They use their strategy in that particular village is to use every waste material as a resource. And if you look at it like that, then you minimize the need to actually buy those products and buy the things that you would usually use in place of those waste materials. So does that, I hope that answers that question. But yeah, there's lots of different uses for plastic waste. It's really just about thinking, what ways can it be used? How can you integrate it into the need for existing other types of products like construction materials?
Right, I think you got the answers, questions answered. Is there any other questions? Otherwise, I think you can bring this session to a close, unless you have got some burning questions for Professor Crawford. So was it useful, generally, this sharing of that insights from that climate change and sustainability must be very, kind of educational, isn't it, for many of you?
I'm hoping it is. I'm hoping everyone hasn't just fallen asleep, Hemanta.
No, I'm sure, because I think the science is very important, and I think that is what another thing, through this kind of forum, another side benefit or indirect benefit is basically exposing the culture of science, how to appreciate what is out there as a scientific knowledge, and how to actually take how to leverage that kind of knowledge into the condition of your context, for example, how to modernize your villages, for example. So that kind of bridging knowledge is very important. So without science is your step. It is very hard to make it. So it is very hard to develop an intervention which is going to be acceptable by majority of the community, bulk of the community within the majority, without very important to have the scientific evidence. So science, exposure to the science itself, and making you aware about the way of engaging science into your developing the interventions itself is a very big education here. So I think I already mentioned before as well, Assam and India generally, that research culture is not that great, except the IITs and other top institutions. Our state institutions do not have that sort of research culture, but in Australia, more or less all the institutions have that research culture. So research is a very important skill to have, and somehow that capacity needs to be developed within within the Assamese institutions as well. And people like you coming from the engineering institutions must understand how to do a original piece of research and leverage that scientific knowledge into the local context. This is important to understand. That is itself is a big education.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for because we being in Assam, the scope which we should get, we're not getting that much, and it wasn't. We are very fortunate, and it's a blessing for every one of us that we are getting to learn a bucket full of knowledge from you. Thank you so much, sir, for being here with us. I request the participants, if they have any further questions, they can either type in the chat box or they can unmute themselves and ask.
Yeah, it seems that questions are coming. Somebody is asking for the PPT to share. I don't know whether that can be done, but I think the recording is going on with the clip. Clip will be available, I guess.
Yes, sir. The clip will be available in YouTube.
Okay. YouTube as well.
Yes, this is available. Yeah, this is live today. It's live in Facebook and YouTube also. So it will be available there. So no worries. All the participants will get the link after when we finish all the editing part and all. No worries.
So is that YouTube part will be recorded and left it there, or it will be removed?
So it will be edited, sir.
It will be there. Okay. Anyway, let me also get the link. So I guess Padmini or Nidakshi, you guys can bring the session to a stop.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. We are very fortunate, and it's a great opportunity for us. And surely in the near future, we'll get to know and learn much more from you, not virtually, but we'll get an opportunity to meet you personally. And we are looking forward to that, sir. And just Smart Village Lab is just started from the grassroots level, and we really need your help and support. And we hope that you will be there with us in this journey. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Pamini. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm looking forward to being able to work and meet many of you closely in person at some of the potential workshops that we might hold over there. So thanks, everyone, anyway, and good luck with everything.
Thank you, Robert.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much.
Sir.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, sir. Lastly, also, I would like to grant my heartiest thanks to Dr. Hemanta Doloi, sir, for guiding us and for mentoring us in each and every step, and giving us much knowledge about what's the background of Smart Village and why we need Smart Village in India and basically in Assam. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much for participating and being engaged and interested.
Thank you, sir.
We'll see you next time. All the best for the remainder of the program.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. All the participants are requested to fill up the feedback form. Thank you.